While we do His good will, He abides with us still, and with all who will trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey.
Welcome, 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 my fine Manna Minuteers, and thank you for joining me for another week of Manna Minutes. Actually going to be jumping out of the book of Proverbs today in chapter 3, and although this was not exactly planned as part of the Proverbs study, and I know we've already done Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 5 before, but today we are going to take a little bit of a different application of this verse. Not a different interpretation, but a different application of Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 5. Study time will probably be shorter because you're going to need the remainder of that time to chew on the passage and really let it sink into your life. And I hope you do that today. As always, I'm going to remind you, take some time, talk to your Father today. He desires to hear from you. We're going to start out in Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 5, which says, trust in the Lord. Okay, I'll read it for real. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. Well, as I said, that verse is going to take a little bit of digestion. It's really one of those verses that is just so easily said, so easily thrown out there. And in the moments of clarity, in the quiet moments, like right now when I'm sitting here recording Manna Minutes, and I've been in the Word, and I've had the Word in me, it is so easy for me to say, man, I need to trust the Lord. First thing when I wake up in the morning, I need to trust the Lord. I need to trust the Lord about my finances. I need to trust the Lord about the way I structure my business, about the way I conduct my relationships. And starting out on this coming Monday, I am just going to trust the Lord, not worry about anything, right? Well, that all sounds good and fine, doesn't it? Until, you get in the heat of the moment, until things start moving and the gears don't always seem like they're going to line up, and you're looking at things and you're like, wow, and this is just throwing out examples. Can I really trust the Lord to give of my first fruits of my finance? Can I trust the Lord to give of my time? Can I trust the Lord to give my life to Him, to give my reputation, to lay down my dreams, my goals, my desires, and pick up what He wants me to pick up? Can I lay down my pride? And can I lay down my way of doing things and pick up the Lord's way of doing things? Well, it's really not a new problem. And we could look back in Genesis chapter 3, as a matter of fact we will, and you know that story. That's the story when the serpent tempted the woman. God has just made the planet. He sat down the ground rules. He's told them, look, go out there. There's one rule. What? You had one job. That one job was leave the tree of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil alone. Just don't eat of it. That's the big rule. And of course we know that the serpent comes along and begins this temptation with Eve. And he does some arguing with her, but the pivotal moment actually comes in verse 6. And I want you to listen to what verse 6 has to say. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate. Well, what was it? It was, the tree is good for food. And man, if that doesn't touch on just about every area of our lives, and you can say, okay, well, it's just food, right? But what is that today if it's not our finances and our resource, everything that is attached to us? Because, we gotta eat to live, right? We gotta live. We have to, we have to trust God first. What the reasoning is here really, and I know I'm kind of stammering over my words here because it almost doesn't make sense. There's a whole garden full of food. And yet the first rationale that comes to the mind of the woman that's explained by the scriptures is that they saw that the tree was good for food. Well, were they right? Was it fruit? And God had supplied so much around their environment that they could have eaten from. And that's what I want you to take a look at in your life today. God has set some things off limits. And yet, His boundless supply, His bounty is all around us. And instead of focusing upon the bounty that He has provided all around us, just in simply trusting and obeying Him, instead, we have a tendency to want to get fixated on the few things that are out of bounds, on the few things that can absolutely destroy us. I know that is true in my life, and I can't seem to get them out of my head sometimes. So many wonderful things. And yet these few things that we fixate on, these few dollars that we give to the Lord, right? Because really it's just a few dollars. At least in my budget, it's a few dollars that I give to the Lord. And probably truly tell you, just to be honest, not enough to make a huge difference in my life unless I hang on to it and rob the Lord of it. A few little adjustments in our relationships. Who we put first. There's not a whole lot of difference between first and second, is there? But God needs to be in first place, and yet we want to draw that back. But she saw that the tree was good for food. It was a delight to the eyes. It was something pretty to look at. And that it was a tree desired to make one wise. Well, it gave them knowledge. It gave them the knowledge of good and evil. But as far as wisdom, I don't see that it moved the ball of wisdom down the field at all. As a matter of fact, I see that we lost a whole lot in the ways of wisdom. Because remember what we said, the beginning of knowledge is what? The fear of the Lord, the reverence of the Lord. That's where it all begins. And so that was definitely one area of huge miscalculation. My goal today is just to remind you, listen, trust in the Lord. Don't fixate on the few things that are off limits. Instead, see the bounty in the garden that He has created all around you. And understand that the value of a good, loving relationship between you and your Father is greater than any tempting fruit that could be good for food, or could be desiring to the eye, or could, in your estimation, make you a little bit sharper in the noodle. It's just not worth it. Instead, learn to rely and trust on the Lord. I know, easier right now than it will be as soon as the little play dial runs out and we have to go back to real life. But nonetheless, that's your word of encouragement today. I hope you take it with you. I pray that the Lord blesses it in your life. And as always, my advice to you, be good, have fun, do it in that order. Lord bless you.
But we never can prove the delights of His love until all on the altar we lay. For the favor He shows, for the joy He bestows, are for them who will trust and obey. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey.